chats, Ed Midsole Bud here. Asics are set to launch the GEL Nimbus 25 very soon. Today I've got a slugfest for you of the max cushion variety. I've grabbed some of the most cushioned shoes in my arsenal and I'm going to compare them up against the GEL Nimbus 25 to see if this really is the most comfortable running shoe out there. Let's get to it, people. Thanks for tuning in, it's always a pleasure. If you're yet to do so, help the channel out to continue to grow by hitting that subscribe button, but also click the bell of notifications. If you've been enjoying the content recently, also hit that like button and share this video with your running buddies.
Dankeschön.
Asics are set to launch the GEL Nimbus 25 very soon. In mind of that, I'm going to compare it up against a whole bunch of shoes from my arsenal. How does it shape up in terms of comfort? The GEL Nimbus 25 is a shoe that Asics have sent over to me for review, but they're not vetting my views before my valued viewers. Not being paid to make this video, these are just my honest opinions as per usual. First up, some all-important stats for you. This new version of the Nimbus comes in at around 357 grams or 12.6 ounces for my UK size 11. I've got about 42mm of stack height here in the heel, and there's around about 34mm approximately in the forefoot. Comparing that up against three other shoes today, the Invincible Run 2 from Nike, the SC Trainer from New Balance, and the SAUCONY Endorphin Shift 3. The Nimbus has got a really nice balance between cushion and stability. As you can see from the stats, the forefoot width isn't quite as wide as the Invincible Run 2, though it is much of a muchness, with only about half a centimetre of difference between all the shoes here today in that respect. The Invincible Run Flyknit easily has the most underfoot surface area. Bizarrely, the SC Trainer quite minimal in fact. I thought it was going to be the other way round, but when I got the measure out, that's what it said. The SC Trainer is the only shoe in today's video that has some sort of carbon element within the midsole. All the other shoes just simply feature a large portion of foam underfoot. The heaviest of today's shoes is the GEL Nimbus 25, with the lightest being the SAUCONY Endorphin Shift. It's by about 50 grams as well. So how does this one shape up against something like the Invincible Run Flyknit 2 from Nike? So upper-wise, a real mixed bag here. The upper on the Nimbus feels a little bit more refined, I suppose. There's a lot of material in the Invincible Run 2. Certainly the tongue and the heel padding here just feel a little bit odd. It's almost like they're on the outside of the shoe rather than doing anything to actually provide some comfort to your actual foot. Here the upper is actually very smooth. It does feel plush, I suppose. I never felt that at all in the Invincible Run Flyknit 2. Certainly very smooth. It just really does look the part as well. A really striking profile. The Invincible Run, not really a great looking shoe if you ask me. Not visually appealing. It looks a little bit bulbous looking and a very strange upper. The padding here in the Nimbus really does do a great job of locking your foot into the shoe. I certainly favour the upper here in the GEL Nimbus 25 over the Invincible Run. Cushion wise, obviously the Invincible Run has a ridiculous level of squash from that ZOOMX slab. It is more squashy than the Flight Foam Blast Plus that we have in the Nimbus 25. That's a firmer cushion, more consistent I suppose across the footbed. Nike relying quite a bit on those stability elements around the back of the shoe here. I think if they weren't there to control the ride, it would be quite a wild shoe really. I think you'd only be able to run in it at much faster paces. Slower paces would feel very off, I think, if the stability elements weren't there. Very different rides here between the two shoes. Controlled in the Nimbus 25 with a more rolling feel. The Invincible is more of an impact absorber for sure. It really does compress a great deal underfoot. I have to say I still favour the outsole on the Invincible Run over the Nimbus. The Waffle Fest here on the outsole offered a peculiar level of traction across all surfaces. I think it's down a little bit to stability here if that's what you require from a shoe. This is by far the less stable of the two. Not uncomfortable by any means, I really enjoyed it, but not everybody wants the squash of that Nike ZOOMX foam underfoot. It's not going to work for everybody while running. I think that's the more stable and controlled Nimbus 25 comes into play. On to the SC Trainer now, one of the brightest shoes ever created. On paper, the SC Trainer does seem to be a close match to the Nimbus 25, but on foot you've got a very different feel between these two shoes. far less padding in the SC Trainer upper than the Nimbus 25, and for that we get a slight weight reduction between the two shoes. It's about 20 grams lighter, this one, or about 0.8 ounces. Although, to be honest, neither shoe really feels heavy on foot. Perhaps the SC Trainer is a little bit more nimble with that carbon plate that's been embedded into the midsole. And the FUELCELL foam here is very, very squashy, it has to be said. I think without that plate, it wouldn't really work all that well in this type of use case. It does lead me to suggest that the SC Trainer is a more out-and-out running shoe than the Asics GEL Nimbus 25. I wouldn't really want to wear this one around town or down to the pub or something. It just isn't that sort of shoe. Certainly it fits a more long-run vibe, perhaps at a slightly faster pace, though this isn't a shoe where I want to run some sort of tempo sessions or faster reps. Both of these shoes fit firmly into that comfortable cruiser type category. The tallest of the bunch by far though, with about 47mm of stack height here in the heel of my UK 11.5. It's certainly a more in-your-face cushion here offered by the FUELCELL over the GEL Nimbus 25. I mean, you've got a lot of stack height here in the Asics shoe, but it's a more subtle implementation. I think Asics have taken some time rather than just throwing caution to the wind. They wanted to get the design just right to make sure that it actually appeals to a lot more runners than those who just want a really squashy ride. So again, I'm going back to that same thing of conventional cushion, sensible squash. I think if you want that exciting squashy ride from the FUELCELL foam, the SC Trainer is probably the one for you. But it does make me wonder, if you used it for a significant period of time, would it actually place a load of strain onto other parts of your foot and your ankles maybe, where you're trying to stabilize yourself a little bit more? Doesn't feel like that in this shoe whatsoever. I mean, it's almost trampoline-like fun with the amount of foam that they've cut out here on the underside of that midsole. Without that plate, it would simply be a completely unstable ride. I'm not sure anybody would want that. Again, this shoe feels more to me like the Invincible Run from Nike. It shares many design cues from that offering. To me, it feels like Asics have completely rejuvenated the Nimbus line with this iteration of the shoe. Still cushioned and very, very stable. Bizarrely, in comparison to the others, this has the lowest heel stack of the lot. So in terms of comfort out of these two, upper-wise, it's got to be the Nimbus 25. There are significant areas of the upper of this shoe that just don't work all that well for me. I spent a lot of time on the midsole here, but not enough on the upper. The Endorphin Shift 3 from SAUCONY is the last of our comparisons today. A very different shoe all round than the Nimbus 25 in this instance. They both share a similar stack height across the heel, though this one has a much lower drop, so we get a lot more foam in the forefoot. That is detectable on foot, and again, this is not a shoe that I think anybody would want to wear casually. It's very much a stripped down offering. Certainly in the upper, there's a lot less to it. Less padding here in the heel area, and the whole of the toe box here is quite weight relieved when compared to the Nimbus 25. SAUCONY have been very careful to only put padding in very specific areas of this shoe to try and lower that weight. As I mentioned earlier, it's about 50 grams lighter, which is about just under 2 ounces, I think. Could make this a better shoe actually for those lighter runners out there. Perhaps if you're a heavier built runner, the Nimbus 25 could be the answer. I mean, there's significant squash here from the Power Run material and a lot less bulk. The other area that offers some differences between the two shoes is on the outsole. There's a lot less rubber coverage here, with SAUCONY relying on some exposed midsole foam here to give you some traction. Not so with the Asics. They've got some really tough rubber here in the forefoot and in the heel. Certainly not relying anywhere near as much on that exposed foam to offer any sort of grip. This stuff is really tough though. I actually think that the Power Run material here in the midsole is actually a little bit closer to that Flight Foam Blast Plus that we've got in the Nimbus 25. I would suggest that the response and the cushion are very similar between the two shoes. Sort of calculated, very sort of reliable, doesn't compress anywhere near as much as FUELCELL or ZOOMX. I think squashier foams are fantastic. You know, some of them can leave your legs feeling really great, less fatigued. I don't think they're for everybody. Some people need something that's a little bit firmer. We've had this shift, haven't we? No pun intended, over to these super foams. Don't think they're for everyone. The Shift 3 perhaps is the most similar beast actually of the comparisons today. You've got that rocker-like mid to forefoot feel as you toe off. Very similar to the Asics shoe in that respect. I think it's down a little bit to how plush you want your upper to be. This is pared down quite a bit to save some weight. If you're going to be doing some longer runs or you want something that's really plush, this could be the one for you. There's just a lot more padding here. It really is quite luxurious, I suppose. It's like getting into a Volvo estate and turning on the heated seats when it's snowing outside. That's how plush it is. The Asics GEL Nimbus 25 almost reminds me a little bit of a Gibson guitar case interior. Kind of feels like you're putting your foot into that. It really is very, very comfortable. So in short, I think that the other shoes in today's comparison work really well as running shoes. I'm not sure they're ones I'd want to wear sort of casually or just for recovery type stuff. They're very much sort of for easy runs, maybe longer runs. Though I've been using this one quite extensively for casual use as well. It's like a reliable, predictable sort of cushion and actually a really great walking shoe too. I think if you want a weight relieved version of the Nimbus 25, maybe look at the Shift 3. The FUELCELL SC Trainer and the Invincible Run 2 are perhaps a little bit more versatile if you require some sort of changes in pace and stability isn't so much of a concern for you. So that's my comparisons today. Is this the most comfortable shoe that I've currently got? I'd suggest for easy days, recovery efforts, some long runs, and also using it for casual use, I think it probably is. I think the others demand a little bit more diligence in terms of foot strike. This one's like super forgiving from that aspect. That's my comparisons done for today. All four of these shoes are actually very good. I think it's a little bit about what you need in your rotation. It's down to the individual runner. Which of these have worked for you? Do you agree or disagree with my observations? Let the runners and I know down in the comments. Musical interlude time. Every now and then I really get back into the music of Brian Setzer and the Stray Cats. One of my favourite tracks that they recorded was one called Gene and Eddie. This is kind of like a tribute to Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran. Features lots of little lyrical nods, little snippets, little sections of their tracks. It gives a fantastic shot window for Brian Setzer to sort of pull off all those famous licks, those brilliant little guitar parts that we have in some of the Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran tracks, backed up by this sort of rhythm section that really means business. Muscle bass and the stand-up drums, of course. What I love as well, when you hear a live version of this track by the Stray Cats, that Brian uses the initial part of the track to introduce it, like everybody knows what it's going to be. Everybody knows that it's going to be Gene and Eddie. It's an absolute wonder, a real gem, one of the best from the Stray Cats, in fact. A bit of a call to arms, I suppose, for all those rock and roll enthusiasts. Gene and Eddie by the Stray Cats. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Are you going to be picking the Nimbus 25 up when it drops in a few days' time? Hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up like, but also share it with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you